the cherry bomb was originally a petit gâteau I created right after the pandemic. It was entirely pink. It had a little fuse on top. We sprayed it with some nice texture. It had the little like POW thing coming out of the like cartoon style edible image at the top. Something fun with that. When I started getting into flash paper, kind of playing around with that flavor profiling and that idea. Obviously, with the flash paper, it now has an actual fuse and can explode, kind of. It's a very classic flavor profile. Basically, black forest. There's not kirsch in this one, but that chocolate and cherry combination is iconic. It's delicious. It's a nice presentation with that, and it's utilizing Ocoa. And a housekeeping note too, it's a 70% is Ocoa, not 71, but 1% won't hurt. All right, so for the cherry bomb, I am going to do a classic vanilla Bavarian. Would you like to make one more Bavarian?
Twist mine on.
Oh, you're just so good at it. We do not have vanilla beans here, but I love to put either like a really intense vanilla bean paste without all the liquid in it, just straight beans, or fresh vanilla bean in there. I don't steep it in this particular one. I am trying to keep this mousse as white as possible. Cherries on this, I used IQF for this specific one. Cherries aren't in season right now, but when they are.
As always, your Peterson team comes in.
Oh my God, look, a vanilla bean, everybody.
Peterson has it.
The one I made yesterday will not have bean in it, but that's fine. Yes. But yeah, I think that really makes it look really nice. As you can tell, it's got the cherry on top. So I actually have chopped cherries that we put in there. I cook all of the cherry with the cherry puree, add the gelatin in it as one big collection. Then I strain out the chunks of fruit and keep the liquid separate. I spoon in the cherries into the molds very gently, because if you splash and get that red all the way on the sides, you're going to ruin that beautiful line. So once all the fruit's in there, then you can come back with the sauce gun and add the jelly to the layer you want on there. And then we have the vanilla Bavarian that goes onto that, so that way you get that contrast of red and white right next to each other and makes that cherry pop in color a lot more than as if you had chocolate mousse or something. So that's why the chocolate cream insert in that is the chocolate element of it. So we did use the Ocoa 70% with that. That's my second favorite chocolate after Zephyr Caramel. Ocoa is my go-to dark chocolate. It's got a really high cacao flavor to it, that with not the sour tanginess that a lot of dark chocolates nowadays have. I really like that roasted dark chocolate, just tastes like chocolate. And the bitterness is not overpowering either, so it doesn't dry out the palate as much. It's great in a lot of different applications. I chose to do a cream insert with this one, opposed to something else. That way you can get a higher concentration of chocolate in there and get a really good flavor profile of that. Since the chocolate simply insert in this one, I wanted to have a lot of chocolate in the center of it. So I have some pre-built cherries, so we're going to build those with the inserts already made as well. So we're going to build that bomb as a whole. It's a really small batch, which shouldn't take too long. I'm going to grab some cherry jellies out of the freezer while Brent is busy. for this, as you guys can all see, cherries inside of there, all set and frozen, ready to go. And then the chocolate cream we did in just a half sphere mold. That'll get placed on top with the tops. And I'm gonna whip up a little bit more cream for this. That are on this are a cherry puree, so using a cherry puree base, made a puree to garnish on the cake. That, because it's mixed with eggs and egg yolks, it's a different color red than the cherry jelly top of the bomb, so you gotta get a pinky color in there incorporated. We also have a black cocoa cake, so we're using a more intense black cocoa powder from Cocoa Berry. Has anybody kind of played around with black cocoa powder? Now there's all these types of cocoa powders available that weren't before, and it's absolutely an incredible resource to have. The black cocoa powder is a really, really good one. It's more alkalized than traditional Dutch, but that kind of takes down the acidity, which is great with baking at altitude. Acidity is not my friend. So. If any of you ever go to a high altitude or get invited to Aspen to do Food and Wine Fest, please call me. First time I went up to Aspen to do an event, had a sablé cookie, usually takes 6-8 minutes in the oven. I think it baked in 4.5 to 5 minutes up in Aspen. So they're at 12,000 feet elevation, everything bakes extremely fast. I used a third of the baking soda I usually use in recipes. So, ooh, that's hot. Some of that black cocoa powder cake. And speaking of altitude, usually this has a lot bigger crumb structure to it. It gets kind of bubbly and more separated, but I didn't adjust my recipe coming off of altitude, so it actually needs a little bit more leavener in it. I like for the texture I'm looking for. This is a bit dense for me, but yeah, a little bit more leavener is needed when you come out of the mountains. So with chemical leaveners as well, acidity really affects it. So red velvet cupcakes usually has a buttermilk base to it. That acidity change very much affects the chemical leavener to it. And the first times I baked my Miami recipe in Colorado, they literally exploded in the oven. They just completely came out. There was a giant hole in the center, and I was like, what did I do? None of my recipes work the same. Caramels are also very effective if you're doing caramel filling for anything, because everything evaporates so quickly. The boiling point has changed, that I usually have to add additional cream or liquid to that caramel filling to get the consistency to it that I want. The first time I did it, they were rock hard. Everything evaporated so quickly, and I had to change it up for that. So a lot of learning experiences. Got to challenge myself as a pastry chef. So, cool. All right. The other one we're going to work on real quick is the wheel that ended up in the back of it. Thank you so much. So this is a classic wheel recipe. Nothing special about it. I did put the black cocoa powder into it to give it that nice dark black look to it. A lot of these molds are available now. These are fantastic. Come in a bunch of different designs and things of that sort. I see a lot of people using them on top of plates and things of that nature. This one in particular, I like to play around with it a little bit more and add a little bit more texture. So once we put this mix in, we are going to, I keep blocking your guys' view, I'll get better at that. I'm gonna put some texture on top after this goes in the mold, and I'm gonna put some crushed cocoa nibs before we bake it. You gotta get your timing exactly right on this when you're baking something black, because you'll never know if it's done or not. So I found 7 minutes is perfect at 350. Should clarify that. I also ran into doing a coffee version of this, and by the time it made it all the way to the other hotel and someone was trying to plate it, it got very brittle. It was breaking a lot. We were having a lot of breakage with it. I did switch the recipe to a bread flour instead of the AP to give it a little bit more stability, and it was able to hold up a lot better. But this one's not leaving the table, so it'll be perfectly fine. Some cocoa nibs. Just gonna put a couple on top here. It's gonna bake into the tuile. Make a nice textural difference. Bake this for 7 minutes. After I mold them, like most tuiles, immediately when you get them out of the oven. This one I'm going to, on purpose, twist and shape it when it comes out. And it does set really, really quickly, so it's hold to shape. You can have a rolling pin on standby if you have to do a bunch all together. But I don't want it perfectly flat in this case. I want to give it some movement to it. Like that. Brand new. This is actually the first demo that they've got in this brand new kitchen. So everything's so shiny. Beautiful. Thank you, Trey. All right. We're going to go ahead and put the cream in the Bavarian, and we're going to build the cherry bombs. I don't want to fill it up too much because we still have to put the insert on, which is a heavier insert. It will squish down, and we still have to get the lid on without it going over the side. So I'm not going to put a ton in right now. Just enough to cover it really. I'm going to do the inside, flat side down. Frank made the most beautiful Bavarian. It's not loose at all. It's wholly beautiful. And let's go ahead and put that lid on. If you guys haven't used these molds, it's really important that you press every single one to make sure it really actually sticks down in there. And then I usually pipe all the way in a circle, go around like this. Make sure all those air pockets are gone. quickly and take off the excess. This is going to be the base, so I'm not too concerned about how it looks on that side. So this is an Ocoa chocolate dip with cocoa nibs inside. I love to use this dip because it looks like it contains nuts, it looks like it could possibly contain gluten, but it actually contains neither. So it adds that crunchy look to it while keeping it still nut-free. Clear glaze is very important on that one. It's really going to give a nice pop of red color. That was really too thin. So you guys seen me make a couple desserts now. You know I like mixing textures together of shiny versus matte. So that's exactly what we're going to do with this one. Is we're going to dip the bottom half of it in the crunch glaze. So that way you get shiny and matte all together. I do want to let this one dip. That way when I set it down, it creates a little bit of foot on purpose. So your dessert doesn't roll off the plate when it's going to the room. The cherry will brighten up too as it thaws. You'll see it get redder and redder. Into this dessert, and I didn't want to sit there and slowly put little bits of gold leaf all the way on it, so I tried to find a technique that would almost look like the gold blasted into one side of the dessert. So using a squeeze bottle, I saw this technique where people like squeeze into the squeeze bottle the whole thing of gold leaf and like squish it back out. Similar to that, except we're not going to let it go all the way in. We're going to use the suction from the bottle to pick up the gold leaf and then blow it really quickly on top of it. So that's why I lined them all up this way. That way I can go this way and hopefully you guys will not be covered in gold. Tip on this is very big. I might grab that. Use a decent amount of gold leaf, but again, we're setting this on fire and selling it for $18, right? It's fine. All right. So next step, I do use a black plate, one to really make that color color pop on it too. But flash paper does sometimes leave a mark, so it's better to start with the black plate, and then that way you're never going to see anything. So I'm going to go ahead and set this on one side. Use some of that leftover gold leaf to fill the hole. Is the party over? Are we close?
It's not turn on too many lights all of a sudden.
Trust me, you won't need to turn down the lights for flash paper. I made the mistake the first time I got it. I lit a whole paper at once. Don't do that. My whole team thought the kitchen exploded and I was slightly blind. So once I put my tuile down, I am gonna kind of make a trio of the cream. So I know I want it there. I'm going to do one underneath the trio. That way it kind of creates a textural difference. And a little of that black cake just broken up. Use a microwave sponge for this too. Works really nicely. All about getting that different texture. A little bit more cherries. Just like to cut them in half. That way you don't end up with a full cherry in your spoon in one bite. It's a little overwhelming, especially these are amaretto cherries, which are very sweet. Okay, now the fun part. Alright. So, flash paper you can buy on Amazon, but it takes like 3 weeks to arrive from China. I actually suggest you go to a magician's website. They sell them a lot cheaper and they arrive within the week. It's the consistency of tissue paper. It's really, really light. My initial thought was to fold it origami style and use it, but again, that used too much flash paper for what I was wanting to do. You also have to light it with a stick lighter, because if you light it with a blowtorch, it flies away on fire. Those are all the things I've learned. The other thing is it cannot touch the dessert at all. If it comes in contact with any sort of moisture, it will not light, and there will be a piece of flash paper left on your plate, which you do not want. What I did was created little triangle pieces that I've pre-rolled. So you would have to set this on the plate table side to ensure it doesn't fly off into the room either. So this, it does hold shape as far as like creating a round. So I kind of pre-rolled it, so it kind of created that look to it. That way I can kind of wrap it around and not have it touch anything on the plate. Ready? I'll do this more than once, don't worry.